Welcome to Chart, where we chat about art. Join us this week to talk about minimalism. Stay tuned. Love you. Okay.
Love you.
We are Finn, Mara, Javier, and Kristy, and thank you for tuning in to listen to Chart Podcast. We are so stoked to have you here with us and that you take some time out of your day to hear us discuss any things that are happening in the art world. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Let's roll.
So, what is minimalism? The only minimalist work I ever knew was the one with the blocks, and that was it. That is what I think minimalism is.
What about the tube thing that we saw in...
the cover of an album.
Is that minimalism? Or is that too elaborate for minimalism? Javier, team?
Well, let's start with explaining what minimalism is.
Yeah, because it's good that you don't know, because neither did I until yesterday evening.
Because minimalism is very vague. Kind of the explanation is very easy, but it's hard to wrap your head around. Okay.
Wait, should we tell people that we filmed these episodes naked so that they watch it on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I am. This is my skin color.
This is my skin color.
Yes. Kristy's
I
white.
have this tattoo.
Yeah,
I
I'm
bet
white.
you didn't know that.
May I do the honors then of explaining one of my
Please.
favorite art movements?
It's one of
Please
your
educate
favorite
us.
art movies?
Dude, is
I love
it?
minimalism.
Wow.
So, minimalism has come up in the 1950s, 1960s, which was around the same time as conceptualism. And those two are pretty similar in their idea. Because with minimalism, it is important to note that their intention was to steer away from art having to have a meaning that is represented in the real world. A painting would depict a natural scene or a portrait. Most of the works that would come in for kind of stem from the idea that Duchamp had with the fountain. It's a urinal, which if you don't know how that one looks, please go and watch the video.
There was something reading on the urinal. What was it?
Armut.
Right.
Anyway, with his idea that whatever he says is art is art. And minimalism kind of goes on that, but steering away from art has to mean something. Art can be the experience that you have as a viewer with that work is the thing that is important. Where the idea of the work is more important than the physical work. If we look at the most well-known name in minimalism, Donald Judd, I mean, he does not see himself as only an artist in minimalism, but also in conceptualism.
What is conceptualism then?
I understood that if you had a brick, a minimalist would be like, that's just a thing in space. You're walking, you're interacting with it. You don't really need to think about its deeper meaning. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
If it was a conceptual work, again, the exact same thing, but someone's telling you it's a conceptual piece. It's about what does the rock mean? What does it represent? What's it stand in for? And minimalism just doesn't have that narrative. It just is what it is.
The difference with conceptualism that the work itself is not really important. So the work is just an object in space. So that's where they kind of overlap. But yeah, with minimalism, it's really about the experience of the viewer with the work. And that's what makes it a bit complicated sometimes, because you often are looking at a brick or a stone floor, shiny metal boxes in a big hole, and you're like, what the But that's why I like so much about the work, is that every time you see it, it can change. It depends on who is in the room. It depends on the lighting. If it's a very sunny day and you have Donald Judd has all his works are untitled, but has these shiny metal kind of brick structure that are stacked against the wall, but they're not stacked on top of each other. There's like always this negative space in between the blocks. Because it's a shiny material, when the sun is shining, it will light up more. When it's cloudy, it won't. And that negative space is also important in the work. So it's like a tower, but it changes every time you see it.
So it's about the space and sort of the context it's in, rather than what it is.
Would you say that minimalism is site-specific?
No, because you move it.
But then if you move it, it changes the meaning of it in a way because it's reacting to a completely different context.
But then you could say that anything's site-specific because you move it.
Well,
unless it's made for that one space and it cannot move.
Well, I don't think paintings are site-specific.
Yeah, neither.
Most of them.
I think minimalist works that are made now are more site-specific than back in the 1960s. I don't think that was very important back then.
Do we want to jump into works? I've done a setting the scene, but I've scripted it a bit more this time.
We have to close our eyes again?
Yeah, okay. So I won't tell you anything about the work yet. You just have to close your eyes and relax.
Okay.
I've literally written it out word
send
for
music
word.
in the background.
Okay. It's 1966. You're in New York. It's summer and you're wearing your favorite mustard miniskirt. You're feeling sexy. You've been to the hairdresser and come out with a pixie cut. It's Saturday night with the girls and you decide to hit up a gallery before going out for drinks. You're very cultured, but you like to have a good time. You've heard the reviews for the exhibition at the Tibor Denagi Gallery. It's very controversial. You have a rebellious streak and your parents don't agree with your lifestyle. You choose to go to the opening night of the exhibition and later mention it at dinner. It'll piss them off, and that idea excites you. You walk... Okay. You walk into the gallery. You see a series of sculptures by Carl Andre, a minimalist. 8 sculptures of 160 stacked bricks, 2 bricks high, placed directly onto the floor. Despite all being called equivalent, each one is configured differently. As someone who doesn't know much about minimalism, these sculptures enrage you, as they're just a pile of bricks left willy-nilly. He does not use traditional materials such as bronze or marble. After a couple of free champagnes they're giving away at the opening, you begin to wonder, perhaps his flat floor sculpture are in fact questioning the tradition of placing artwork on a plinth or a pedestal. You leave the gallery feeling enlightened. You make your way to the bar with the girls, still wondering who will buy this. In fact, no one will buy this. And Carl Andre will return the actual bricks to the factory for a refund.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Wow.
That's it, guys.
Wow. For a moment, I was in the 1960s.
Yeah, for a moment
I could hear the Doors in the background. It was great.
The Beatles is playing in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing my mustard skirt,
Yeah.
my pixie cut.
Hairdresser.
Tripping on acid. It was great.
Yeah.
Okay, this artwork is by Carl Andre, and it's basically just 160 bricks on the floor. There's nothing done to them, and they're 2 bricks high, but he will just put them in different positions, and there's 8 of these sculptures. So equivalent, the name, is more so to do with the fact that they all weigh the same, have the same number of bricks, are 2 bricks high. Not that they look the same. That's the work. I can tell you more about it because it's caused some drama. It's been called the most boring, controversial work ever. And I also just wrote down why it's not conceptual art, because I found that idea a little confusing. It's because it's not immaterial the way conceptual art aspires to be.
It's what Finn said, yeah.
Just a bunch of bricks.
Yeah.
Don't need to look into it. That's it.
Like you said, it's made of bronze. It's not made of like a high material.
Yeah.
It's bricks.
And I think also that idea of getting rid of the plinth or the pedestal or the frame or whatever you put art in and just putting it directly onto the floor, which is generally what minimalism likes to do. In the 1970s, I think Tate was like, I really want one of those. But obviously, Carl Andre was like, I actually already returned the bricks like to the factory because no one bought those.
I need to purchase more.
They were like, no, like we really want one of the series of 8. We just want one. You can guess how much they spent. People got upset because it was taxpayer money.
I thought Tate wasn't even a gallery yet until
I don't know because it said Tate, and I was also no, because that's Tate Modern. This is Tate Britain.
Were they a gallery already?
I think Tate Britain is really
old. They said Tate though,
or
maybe Tate was a.
It was a guy.
Yeah, so maybe he just...
Could it
I
just
don't
be the
know.
guy?
Because they exhibited it very soon after, so they must have had a gallery.
Okay, so Tate Britain, known from 1897 to 1932 as the National Gallery of British Art, and from 1932 to 2000 as the Tate Gallery. Okay.
Yeah, but now Tate Britain wouldn't buy it because they'd be like, who's this dude? He's American. Or, I don't know. It's not. Anyway, so I'll just tell you how much they bought it for.
Yeah.
Wait, can we guess?
What was the year again that they bought it?
I think 1972.
Okay.
Are we talking about millions?
That would be too much.
It enraged taxpayers, okay?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Enraged.
Maybe
so
we're
it
talking
has
about
to be-
millions.
It was half of the price of when it was first exhibited.
Okay, I'm going for 250,000.
I'm going for 500,000.
780.
Four.
1,000 or 100?
No, 780,000.
Okay, guys. It was £2,297.
Oh, it's fine.
God damn it.
Yeah,
For
but
what?
it enraged people. Because
Oh,
also, 'cause they were
that-
like, you're just buying bricks. Carl had to go, I'm going to call him Carl. He had to go buy 160 bricks, but they didn't do it like that brick he had originally used anymore, so he had to buy a new brick.
So
Oh,
it's not even original then.
Did he
No.
try to track down the original bricks?
I think it wasn't about the meaning of the brick, guys. It's just not about that. And he also sent instructions to Tate on how to exhibit it. The issue is, if you only buy one of the set of 8 and the name is its equivalent,
What is it equivalent
what's
to?
the
right?
point? Because it feels a bit weird to just... Because it's equivalent to nothing, because it's just one.
Maybe that was the meaning.
That was harshly criticized as well. Like, why would you only buy one?
Probably because it was more expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you would have bought 8 of them, it would be 1,600,000.
That would cause a protest
a million.
in the UK.
Well, if it's 200,000 for each of them, and there's 8 of
It's
them.
not. It's 2,297.
What?
okay.
Yes, face just
Froze.
totally.
Well, if it's 200 and there's 8 of them,
No, it's
1,000.
2,000 and then 297.
that's not much. I thought we were talking about
No,
200,000.
it's just £2,000.
That's nothing. What are the taxpayers? What's their problem? That's
You
nothing.
just hate it because it's bricks that they're just buying some bricks for that much.
Yeah.
At the time in the 70s, some chef hated it so much he threw blue food dye on it, and then people were angry once more when they took it off display, so they just had a bunch of bricks sitting in a warehouse.
Wow. Is it exhibited now? I think it's such a hard work to exhibit because it's just bricks on the floor.
Anyway, gallery's opening at the end of July, so I'm sure it will be
27th of July.
somewhere.
I read
Yes.
the 4th of July.
No, that's a
No,
lie.
27th of July.
So
They don't open until the 27th.
Oh, it's not on display.
are you joking? Now everyone's going to be
You want to
disappointed.
see it, the bricks.
Break into the archive of Tate and you can see it.
Or just buy 160 bricks. Guys, question. If this artwork can be reproduced so easily, and then
Yes.
Tate bought it, are you just buying an idea? But minimalism isn't really about ideas.
You're buying the bricks, so there's a physical element in it.
Yeah.
I think you're buying the meaning given
But
to
it's not
those
even
bricks.
it's not even the original bricks. It's just a bunch of bricks.
You put the bricks in a certain way and you call them something. They become something created by this one guy. So it's kind of like like an idea.
It's also how you said about how Duchamp was using things and then calling it art, and then it renders it art.
Right.
With Carl Andre, it's the exact same thing, that he's calling this pile of bricks, this is art. In some way, it has been given value.
You're buying the representation of
Mm.
what minimalism is and what Carl Andre's work is. You're not
Mhm.
buying the work, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of like you can't replace the bricks in a way. If someone accidentally broke a brick in Tate of Carl Andre's, they wouldn't replace the brick with another brick.
And I think that's why I like minimalism.
Wouldn't they?
I don't know, but I think they would replace.
I think
You
they
think
would.
so?
I'm pretty sure it's like that guy who does works with neon lights, whose name I can never remember.
Actually,
They probably have a plan for replacing bricks if they break or something like that.
With Dan Flavin's work, there was an issue a few years ago that the material that he used in his lamps was getting outdated and was not being manufactured anymore, so they couldn't replace it. So that it's actually the same question now. Are you going to the same kind of tubes that he was using, or are you buying new LED ones and saying, okay, we're going to replace this, but then it's not his work anymore?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it kind of brings us the question of the preservation of artworks, and it's also like, you know, with old masters, when it's like no longer pristine, does it render it unauthentic?
That sounds like a good topic for another episode. Like does restoration destroy the artwork?
Mara did a whole elective on that, so she can do like the episode.
Yeah. She's so excited. You can't see it because it's a podcast, but she's grinning like a kid. Yes. Yeah.
I didn't have anything else written about this work because nothing really happened. And then also Carl was like, I'm not even a minimalist.
I noticed that most artists don't really see themselves as a minimalist, which is funny.
They were like, I don't like it because it sounds reductive. It sounds like we're making art about nothing.
What if they are?
Well, they are. He's just a guy.
He's just a guy with bricks.
A regular man.
Yeah.
It's kind of like us talking about how we want to like categorize art again, like putting them into boxes, but then what they are trying to do is to like be out of the box.
Well, yeah, I think he just falls under that category. Yeah. But he just doesn't want to be known as that.
The question is this the work that kickstarted the whole minimalism movement, or is it just the most recognized one?
I don't think it's the one that kickstarted it. It's just a bit controversial. As you know, when you went with the girls to piss off your parents.
Of course, in the 1960s, listening to Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, we were just talking about boxes, so that's the perfect transition, because I'm going to talk about Donald Judd's little boxes.
Nice.
We should call this episode Bricks and Boxes.
Bricks and Boxes.
Yes, B&B.
Donald Judd, which is one of the more known names in minimalism, he has a foundation in Marfa. And if you haven't listened to our Prada Marfa episode, please do. He has a foundation there because he was originally from New York, but he didn't really like the hustle, so he moved to Marfa. But it was a previous military bases, and his house became his studio. And later the foundation, and also the Chinati Foundation, which is, he started that and is now being run by extended family. Yeah. In the Chinati Foundation, he has a huge room which was used before to store missile rockets.
Cool.
So it's like pretty big, huge warehouse. But he opened it up completely and placed a lot of windows on the side. And in that space, he put 100 aluminum boxes that have the same size, but are divided inside in a different way. So some boxes are completely empty. You can see through them from one side. So they're kind of rolled from the left and the right side. You can see right through them. But some are divided in the middle on a vertical way, or some are divided in a horizontal way. And the work is called 100 Untitled Works in Aluminum. And he made from 1982 to 1986. And he just placed them in that room, and they never moved. So I think that's a pretty site-specific work. The idea there was the reflection of the light hitting the aluminum would transform the space. Not only the metal boxes are the work, but the whole space and you as well as a viewer become part of that work. It's about the experience of seeing it. What was also very important in that period was experimenting with different materials that were not really seen very often, like Carl Andre using bricks, and he's just using aluminum sheet that he plied himself.
Yeah, I was thinking what's important was that they were coming off abstract expressionism, which was generally paint. And that was so like emotional and expressive. And then they moved on to minimalism, where they were like, fuck those materials, let's use some new ones. And things like aluminum are like a bit more interactive, you know, you go like this.
You see yourself.
So when you go there, can you walk into the room and walk around the boxes?
Yeah, you can.
Can you climb on the boxes?
I'll sit.
You can.
You can, but you'll be arrested.
Will I be arrested? That was my question.
100 likes and we'll get Javier arrested.
Yes.
So what is interesting about the foundation is that they still present a lot of minimal works that are made in this era. So one that I wanted to talk about was made in 2016. took 17 years to make by Robert Irwin, and it's called From Dawn to Dusk. And it's the C-shaped building. There was a hospital on that area that he wanted to make the work. It's really big. The building represents that hospital shape. So it's a C shape, and then in the middle there's like a little courtyard with a tree. But you would enter on the left side, and there's nothing in the building, and it's completely black, so completely dark, and you just have to follow. And when you get to the center of the building, suddenly you go through a transition with different sheets of some sort of chalk fabric, and you go from this completely black area into an overly white room. So suddenly it feels like you're like walking to the light. And then you follow the rest of the building, and it gets even more white and white and white, and then you exit.
But why did it take 17 years?
Oh, that's just permits and...
you can't tell me there's too much going on in Marfa in Texas.
It takes 17 years.
Yeah, they have too many permits. It takes a long time. I find that one more difficult to understand as a minimalist work. I understand that's like an experience. It just feels the title of this present. The title kind of alludes to the idea of the experience. I don't know how to explain it. Usually the titles I feel are a bit more like plain Jane, like they don't want to allude to anything.
I see way more depth in this one than in the other works we've discussed.
Would you call this conceptualism?
I was thinking about that, yeah.
You know what is interesting is that it's also made in 2016, so that's over 40 years. 40 years of art history, and then wanting to make a minimal work. So you will see like elements of conceptualism and other art in the work.
So it's like everything. So I don't think it's like one of those where you can like put into category yet.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just like general contemporary art.
When I was educating myself on this, I saw that loads of people who are minimalists very quickly then went on to other types of art quite quickly after. Whereas some, movements, you have artists who literally never leave it, and that's them for life, and they're stuck. Minimalism seems like everyone was like, oh, this is so cool, I love it. I'm going to move on now to something else.
It's also hard work to talk about because there's like
not much to talk about
on the floor. I mean, if I speak for Donald, he left the minimalism world, but he also kind of left the public art world.
Okay.
Well, he fully tapped out.
It's like, this is too much for me now. I've got a question actually, because you were talking about From Dawn to Dusk, where it gets brighter. I remember there's this one work where it's the color of sunset in California, and it's just like an installation where the color would just keep changing according to the sunset. I think it's by James Turrell. Would that be minimalism or would that be conceptualism? Because I think it's rather minimalist. It's,
I don't even think the title tries to tell you anything more than what it is.
I think the title was like Skyscape or something like that.
I think it would lean more towards the minimalistic.
Yeah, because I've got another work that I was thinking of. Carrie Young, she would measure the elements in her body and put up a price of how much it is to make up her body. So like all the metals.
This rings a bell.
That would be like a really good example of conceptualism, because it immediately links to the comment on capitalism, how you can buy a physical body. Right. So every single time someone wants to buy the work on that particular day, she would weigh herself and test the elements in her body and would give out a price. And obviously, because of inflation and all, since she started making the work, I think it started off as like 22k pounds, and now it's like 50 something. I think that is like a good distinction in figuring out what is conceptualism and what is minimalism, I feel like. Yeah.
That's a really good example, yeah.
When you see the work, it's literally just like a price printed on the wall.
I like the aesthetics of minimalism, but how does one write an essay on it?
You put a lot of work so that you can fill it with
anything. What do you write about?
The experience. You just get very poetic about how it is to be in front of it.
But then in terms of that, would you say you're more leaning toward how do you write about it academically about one single work, or
for someone who does art, I don't like ideas that are too abstract. Like I find it really horrible to think about. That's why I hate, like, you know, this philosopher thought this and that, and how these things connect. And it's like, how, like, why does that matter?
So you don't like abstract concepts, but I remember when we were in Freeze, you said that your favorite painter is an abstract artist.
Did I know I said Tracy Emin is? What did I say? I don't know. Yeah. Probably it was an abstract expressionist because I like them.
There you go. So my point is that you don't like abstract concepts and like you know, philosophical concepts and all that, but you like abstract art and making your own ideas out of it.
You are more interested in the execution of the idea compared to
I think it's theory that I don't like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I really hate theory. I liked minimalism because it doesn't mean anything. It's just, it is what it is. It's
easy for you.
Yeah. Make it sound like I'm really thick. Like, she'll love minimalism.
I don't have to think about it. Great.
You should tell Mara about minimalism. She'll love it.
I remember coming back for the second semester, and we were talking about this artist who worked with tables. She would saw them in half, or he would saw them in half, I don't remember. He would take one end of the table, and he'd take the other end of another table, and bring them together. And that was the work.
Yeah.
And I quite like that.
Whole explanation. And I was just sitting there like, why on earth matter? It's just two different tables that he put together. He was talking theories and ideas for, I think, like 45 minutes straight. And I was just sitting there like, oh God, this is going to be a long semester. Maybe the artist has read that.
That is a very interesting point, that, you know, when you make art or write about it, you're using a theoretical framework because you're thinking about something, you know? So any idea that you have and you want to put in an artwork comes from some sort of school of thought, because otherwise you would be just like a photorealistic painter or something. You're just making what you see. But at the same time, when you analyze it, it's very hard for people, and I mean academics mostly, to look at it without first checking all this list of theory. And that can be so restrictive of what the work actually means. Look at us, like we were just saying, but is this a minimalist work? You know, and all these minimalist artists being like, oh, no, don't call me that. I'm not that.
I think it's also trying to sell the work, these text that describes the work, that kind of gives it an intellectual value or cultural value, that it reflects this theorist, that it reflects this academic insight. It's also like a capitalist art world construct. I mean, obviously, like there are artists who have read extensively about theory and are inspired by those things. There's also an element of how it is presented when it's outside of the studio.
Like the gallery has to create a narrative.
Yeah. But then at the same time, the work is to just shown as a work that provokes thinking. But I don't know. For me, minimalism doesn't do that to me.
I think I enjoy minimalism when it is a very atmospheric experience. The Donald Judd boxes in the desert, or if I would be visiting that from dawn to dusk thing, because it would be like an experience, and I would be like in a setting that it's unusual and having nice visuals and all that. But if I would see the bricks, I wouldn't. Like, I would understand why it's so important, but it doesn't click anything in my head.
It's kind of like watching a movie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it kind of similar for me when I look at photographs sometimes. Because you can have a very mundane photograph, not really provoking anything, but still can give you a form of an experience, a feeling when you watch and when you look at that image. I have an image of Eve Arnold that she was a photographer who followed Marilyn Monroe. It's just a kind of a portrait of Marilyn, and she's dead center in composition in the desert because she was filming. She just has her hands together and she's kind of thinking. And that's actually everything. You just see the background. And for me, that image, although it's super simple, I cannot stop looking at it. For me, it just does something to me. And there's nothing more to that than just that connection.
The moment you kind of see what emotions she's experiencing, you already have a lot to think about, and the image has a lot of meaning. Imagine, I don't know, like a picture of something even more simplistic than that. A shoe, just a shoe on a table, something like that. You know,
I remember when we were in the Netherlands, I asked you, Javier, like in the photo museum, like, what do you think of photography? And you were like, yeah, I don't really get it.
I do get it, and I do like it, when photographers do these weird techniques to have these very weird visual things happening, or if they get a really good shot of something and it's like the composition of like the people in it and what's represented, the lightings, things like that, when they're beautiful, aesthetically, I love it. I think when you told me that we were in front of this wall full of pictures of like the everyday life with an American family in the middle of nowhere in the woods.
Yeah.
And there was this very beautiful picture there, like a guy like cleaning a shotgun, and behind him there was like a baby that must have been like 3 or 4 years old, and
Right.
she was like standing up because she was very blonde, and the sun was hitting her head. It looked like a halo. Her head was glowing. And like aesthetically, that was a very beautiful picture. And you could think a lot of things to think about when I saw that picture. The guy with the shotgun in the US, you know, the holy child behind him, all that. But then there were other pictures in that wall that was just like a guy drinking a beer in a chair.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know what to think about. It's just a guy drinking a beer.
Hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. If you especially loved our episode, we would love it if you gave it a 5-star rating and a review, and even consider taking a screenshot of this episode and posting it on your Instagram stories. That way we know that you loved it and other people can find our podcast as well. If you're not subscribed yet, again, what are you doing? Subscribe and get notified every time we publish a new episode. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Chart Podcast, and if you want to see our faces while we talk, find us on YouTube at Chart Podcast as well. We are Chart, and we'll hope we'll meet you again at some point in the near future. Take care. Chart out.
Love you.
See you.
Love
See you
you.
later.
Bye.